guys, and welcome back to my channel and a new video. So for today's video, I am going to talk about some of my all-time favorite romance books that I've read, and I have so many more I would like recommend that are good ones, but I wanted to make a video of like my top tier ones that is like out of this world good that I would so highly recommend, that has been like my favorites that I've read so far, and tell you guys why it's my favorite. And there's just so many good ones out there, like definitely, but these ones have just been like mind-blown good, and I definitely wanted to talk about them in a video. And I'm definitely gonna read maybe better or even just as good ones in the future, and then I will make more videos like this. I'm not the biggest romance reader, like I haven't read too many, definitely not all the popular ones, but I'm getting there, and I've been reading like the most hyped up ones and the really popular ones, and some of them I really enjoyed, some of them I haven't. So but yeah, here are like my top tier favorite romance books that I've read so far. First up, we have a very popular series that I actually had no intent to read whatsoever. I even saw it in a bookstore and I didn't like the cover. I was like, what is this? But somehow I bought it anyways, and I was like, kind of regretting it, until I read it and fell in love with this book. Oh my god. I haven't read anything else by this author. It's my first one, and I know this is a series, so I can't wait to pick up the other two books, but that is going to be Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is the first book in a trilogy, I believe, but we follow different main characters in each book, so I don't think you need to read them in order necessarily, but I mean, I still would, you know, but I don't think you have to, because we follow different love interests in every book. In this book, we follow Ava, who is this girl. I can't remember how old she is, but she's definitely an adult, like over her 20s. I can't just remember her exact age, but she's an adult, which I really like in romance books. Like, since I'm 22, I'm kind of over reading about teenagers. Like, I love and appreciate when the main characters are a little bit older, because it feels more relatable, you know what I mean? So I really like that. I didn't know going into it like what ages it was gonna be. To me, it looks like a young adult cover, but it is adult. Like, they are adults in this book, just so you know. But we follow Ava, who is a college student, and she works 2 jobs, you know, she's just trying to get by. And then we have Alex, who is Ava's older brother's best friend, which is a trope that I really like. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's a trope that I really enjoy. I don't know why. I haven't read too many books about it. I think I've only read one more book where we have that trope, and I love that as well. There's just something about it, like a little bit forbidden over it, you know. I really like that trope, and we have that in here. And Alex is this typical grumpy guy. He's like never had a serious relationship. He's just always grumpy, never smiles, never laughs, you know what I mean? One of those typical guys. And Ava and Alex obviously know of each other because of her brother. They've spent Thanksgiving together. They have spent like family stuff together because they're so close with the brother, you know. So they know of each other, but they don't really know each other, you know, on a deep level. And they don't really like each other all too much either. They're very different. Ava is this social butterfly, while Alex is this grumpy, like non-social person whatsoever. You know, they've just never really gotten to know each other well enough to know each other, and they just don't really like each other. Ava thinks he's this mean and like angry, grumpy person, so definitely don't like have this chemistry before, or like interest before it just happens. So one day, Ava's older brother is moving abroad for a year, I believe, to go on this opportunity. I think it's for work, and Ava's older brother is very protective of her, so he's like, I need someone to look after her while I'm gone, even though she's an adult. She's like, you know, but he's still very overprotective of her. He asks his best friend Alex to look after her and to move into his house, which is neighbors to Ava's house. And at first he doesn't want to do it because he don't like her. Like, he doesn't like her. He's like annoyed by her. He's like, she's an adult, why would she need taken care of? But you know, they're best friends, and eventually he agrees to do it. So he's gonna move into Ava's older brother's house, which is neighbors to Ava's house, to look after her, keep an eye on her, to kind of just make sure she's not getting murdered or kidnapped. And also, one reason why he's doing that is because Ava has an ex-boyfriend that's pretty like, not dangerous, but he's been like haunting her and threatening her and stuff. So the older brother wants to make sure that nothing happens to her. So after a lot of consideration, Alex moves in next door to Ava, and like that's how their friendship begins. So they go from knowing each other because of the brother to friends to more. So I would say it's the perfect pace. It's a pretty short book. I wouldn't say it's slow burned, but maybe a little bit, but like in a good way, not too slow burnt. We have their brother's best friend, kind of enemies to lovers in a way, since they didn't like each other in the beginning. We have, you know, Grumpy versus Sunshine, which is also a trope that I really enjoy, and that whole forbidden thing with the brother's best friend, like, and it was spicy, it was cute, it was romantic. And not only did it have the romance being the main thing, we also had Alex and Ava has both been through a lot of trauma in their childhood, as they connected through that and how they moved on from that and how they created their dream lives. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really, really good book, and I cannot wait to read the other 2 books in this series, even though we're not going to follow Alex and Ava. So good. I highly, highly recommend this. The next book I'm going to recommend and talk about is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, which is a highly well-spoken of author. She has written so many popular romance books, but I have never read a single one except this one. So this was my first book by her, and I was not disappointed. I don't really know what I thought before going into this. I heard it was a slow burn, I heard it was an epic romance, but I don't think I had too high expectations before going into this, because like, you just never know. It's a big book, like it's heavy, it's long, so I didn't really know what I was expecting before going into it. In this book we follow Aurora, who is moving back to her old hometown where she used to live with her mother, and her mother went missing years back when she was hiking, and her body was never found. But obviously that was a big thing happening for Aurora, and she kind of wants to go back to this town to connect with her mother and to connect with nature, to find her love for life again, because she's been feeling down. So after she gets her divorce, she's been married for 14 years, but she decides she wants to get divorced and move back to this town where her mother went missing, to connect and to find herself again, because this marriage that she was in was not a happy marriage. It just was not working out anymore. The decision to move was kind of fast, so she couldn't really find a place to rent except this like garage apartment that was out for rent, so she decided to go for that and then find a better place if she's deciding to stay for a longer time. But when she gets to this garage apartment, she is meeting by the landlord that has no idea what she's talking about. He definitely doesn't want a stranger living in his house, and he's furious because like he didn't put it up there. Turns out that this guy has a son who was the one who put it up on the internet for renting the garage apartment, because he wanted money. And after a lot of consideration, like the first impression of the landlord, which is going to be the main love interest, is that he's so mean and so grumpy. Like, he could have taken it nicely and been like, I'm so sorry, you're gonna have to find somewhere else to live because it was my son, my teenage son, like I don't want anyone living in my house. But he was so mean about it and like basically kicked her to the curb. Like, he was so rude. So the first impression of Mr. Rhodes was not great, let me tell you. But after a lot of consideration, he lets her stay, but he has some really important rules, like I don't want to know you're here, like don't ever go into the main house, like just like we don't want to know you're here. So she's like, okay, like not a great first impression, but she obviously needs somewhere to stay, so she agrees to do it. And you follow Aurora as she's trying to get settled in this town again. She gets a job working with her old best friend in this store, so she connects with her again. She connects with nature. She goes on hikes to try to be close to her mom, and it's kind of just a beautiful story. I think it's set in Colorado, which is kind of nice. Like, it's a beautiful nature, so the setting is truly beautiful, and you really get in there, you know. It's really nice. And as I've said, the landlord, Mr. Rhodes, is a single dad, so he has a teenage son, and Aurora instantly thinks he's handsome. You know, he's a really handsome man, and she's kind of wondering, like, where's the mother? Like, why? They live there alone, the father and the son, so she assumes that he's single. And I wouldn't say that she's gonna like be after him. It kind of just happens. It is a very slow burnt romance. It's way slow burnt than I thought. Like, people said it was slow burnt, but nothing happens until like page 600. So it's really slow burn. You gotta be patient, but it's so worth when it finally happens, because you have literally gotten to know not only Aurora, but you have gotten to know Mr. Rhodes and his son and their backstory and Aurora's backstory, which is a lot. Both of these people have a lot of backstory that like is important for them each other to know, and you get to know them, and it's just truly beautiful. And I feel like when it's finally happening, it's so worth it. It's so rewarding because it's been so long. And I thought it was a truly beautiful, slow burnt romance story, but also about Aurora finding herself again and finding her peace and finding her happiness after a 14-year-long relationship. Like, that was not it. That was not good for her. She finally finds her place in the world, you know, and it's so beautiful. It's atmospheric, it's outdoorsy. As I've said, it's Colorado. It's this nature. It feels like you're there when she's hiking. Ugh, it's truly magical, and I'm so surprised over how much I enjoyed it, actually. And I would almost say that you have Grumpy versus Sunshine here as well. I wouldn't maybe say that Aurora is Sunshine, maybe, but like Mr. Rhodes is definitely this grumpy father, you know, like it's really. But yeah, the aesthetic of this is just gorgeous, and I cannot recommend this enough. But just be aware that it's very, very slow burnt, so you're gonna have to be patient. The next book I'm gonna recommend and talk about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. It's been a while since I've read it, but after reading it, it was one of my favorite romance books that I have ever read. I didn't think I was gonna like it because I hate people on the cover, and I don't like, especially when they're kissing, it's just like, what? No. But because of all the hype, I decided to pick it up anyways, and I loved it. It's been a while since I read it now, and I definitely want to reread it at some point, but I was floored. Like, I loved it so much. In this book, we follow Olive, who is a PhD candidate, I think third-year student. So, you know, women in STEM, women in science, just really cool, and I appreciate that. She doesn't really believe in love. She doesn't really believe in long-lasting relationships, but, you know, all of her friends does. And I don't remember why they decided to start fake dating. There was something in it for them. Like, they didn't just start fake dating for fun. There was something in it for them, but I just can't remember why. But Olive starts fake dating this guy Adam, who is also a student there, or he's like working there, I can't remember, but he's also like in the same work field as her, and they don't really hit it off in the beginning, but they do start fake dating because of something I can't remember, but there's like something in it for them if they fake date. And you know, we see them together as they're fake dating, going on fake dates, going on fake dinners, and as it slowly turns into something real. It's not gonna be the best description, but we have the fake dating trope, which is, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. It was done very well here. It can be done very poorly in my opinion, but this did it really well. Like, I really enjoyed it in here. And I also really like when we have the two people like in the same workplace or like school setting. They're meeting through their common interests. They obviously have a lot in common because they're both into science and working with it, so they obviously have that in common. They're both very smart, very educated, very intelligent people, and it's just it was spicy, it was romantic, it had so many elements that I like, and I have tabbed it, if you can see that, and I cannot wait to reread it. I probably will vlog it because I've only read it once, as I've said, and it's been a while, so I would love to refresh it in my memory of it, because obviously I knew I loved it. Like, it was my favorite romance book that I've read after I finished it. Like, it was my favorite at the time, so definitely recommend it if you haven't read it yet. I think a lot of people have because it's so hyped up, but I just needed to include it in here because it is my top tier romance books. So yeah. Next book I'm gonna talk about, while we're on the fake dating trope again, we have The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, which is also like, this is just as popular as The Love Hypothesis. These two books were going around like crazy, so I think you all have read it, but I needed to include it in here because it is one of my favorite romances that I've read. In this book we follow Catalina, who desperately needs a date to her sister's wedding that's gonna be in Spain, and she's already told her family that she has a boyfriend in America, like that she has a date, like, don't worry, I will bring my boyfriend. So her family expects her to bring a date, but she doesn't have one. She lied. So she has like 4 weeks to find a fake boyfriend or like a fake date, convincing someone to follow her to Spain, which is obviously not going to be easy. Fly across the world for a wedding, like, so she's obviously trying to find that, and she's desperate because her family is expecting her to come with a boyfriend. She also feels pressure to do it because at this wedding her ex-boyfriend will be, so she just desperately wants to show him that she's like moved on and that she has a new one. So I understand her, I really do, but it's not going to be easy. And at her workplace, Aaron works. We have this man, Aaron, and kind of, I would say, enemies to lovers. Like, they're not enemies, but they don't really like each other. You know, they work at the same workplace, they know of each other, but they don't really know each other. He's very cold, grumpy, whilst Catalina is very like open and like, you know, social butterfly, just really the exact opposite of him. And when Aaron accidentally overhears her phone call with her family about the wedding, he offers to go with her as her fake date. and Catalina is like, what? Why would you do that? What's in it for you? Like, she just thinks he's joking, but he's dead serious. And Catalina is starting to wonder, like, what does he want for that? Like, what's his purpose behind this? He has to like have some kind of back thought, because he wouldn't just do that. He's not a nice person, but he actually wanted to do it. So they end up going to Spain for his sister's wedding and pretending to be girlfriend boyfriend. So we have the fake dating trope here again, which I really love, and obviously it's gonna turn out to be something real, and obviously it's gonna grow into something real and more. So but yeah, I thought it was a really sweet romance, definitely a little bit of spice. And again, I've said that fake dating can go either bad, like it can be really bad in some situations, but I really liked it in this one as well. I think they did it really well. And we have some very wholesome moments between these two. They're both very hardworking people working in the same office, and they're just so passionate and so motivated, both of them, and they're just, it's such a good romance. And I've tabbed this as well. I have many tabs, and I've actually only read this once as well, so I really want to reread it definitely some point soon. Yeah, I definitely loved this book. The next book I'm gonna talk about is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is my first Tessa Bailey book. I think she's written some really popular romance books out there, but this is my first book and only book that I've read by her so far, but I really enjoyed it. So in this book we follow Piper, who is like a social media influencer, really has many followers. Like, I would say she's kind of famous and spoiled. Like, she's really spoiled, and one day she throws this party that goes out of control. It spirals, the cop shows up, like it's just a mess. And after this party, her father has enough. He's had enough, so he sends Piper and her sister to this small town. Like, these girls are from, I think, like LA, like a really big city life, and you know, social media star life. And he sends Piper and her sister to this small town, fisherman town, to kind of get their lives back together, to kind of stop being such spoiled brats, kind of. And Piper is obviously furious about it, because she's like, what is there to do for me in a small fisherman town? Like, she's just very spoiled, which actually, like, in the beginning you really hate Piper. I have definitely some problems with her, but she does change. But in the beginning you hate Piper. I hate like the whole spoiled brat famous thing. I didn't like it, but she does change. So, and when they get to this town, they get to live above this bar, so in like an attic, really small space. And obviously Piper is so furious about this, because she's used to luxurious things, you know. And they get to live above this bar that actually they decide to start renovate and to like open up again. That's kind of their project that they have there. And you know, you follow this social media influencer star famous brat as she's trying to cope with her new life in this small fisherman town. And one day she meets Brendan, and Brendan is the exact opposite of her. He is like born and raised in the small fisherman town. He is a fisherman, so he goes out for weeks and weeks sometimes to go fishing, and he's just this really down-to-earth guy, a guy that doesn't have social media, almost doesn't really know what it is, and just really the exact opposite of Piper, I would say. And Brendan obviously thinks that she's a brat, you know, but he also thinks that she's different from the other woman that he's ever met. And I would say in this case, usually I feel like it's always the girl or woman in the books that changes the man for the better, but in this book we have the man change the woman for the better, you know. And that's very rare. I actually really enjoyed that, you know, how the tables were turned. So they obviously have chemistry together, and you follow them as they fall in love, and like, how is that gonna work out, you know, because Piper is determined to only stay there for, I think they were gonna stay there for a year. They made with the deal with their father, and then they could go back. But so she's kind of struggling, like, do I want to go back to my old life, or do I want to stay here? Like, am I finding my place? Am I finding my true love? Am I finding my place in the world, you know, because she obviously just changed a lot since getting here. And I just thought it was really cute. I love a small town romance, and even though, as I've said, I hated Piper in the beginning, but she definitely changed and got to a point where you could actually tolerate her, because you could not stand her in the beginning. It's just yeah, it was sweet, it was sexy, romantic, spicy, small town romance, cute stuff, and also Piper finding herself, you know. It had more than romance. And I cannot wait to read book 2. We don't follow the same main characters, but I think we follow Piper's sister and a new love interest in the second book, so I'm really excited to pick that one up. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really good romance. The last book I want to talk about is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is also one of those authors that have written a lot of popular romance books. She's written Beach Read and Book Lovers, which I haven't read. This is my first book by her that I've read, and the only one that I've read so far. In this book we follow Poppy and Alex that are the exact opposite of each other, but in college they met and became really close friends. I would even say best friends. Ever since they met in college, they have been going on this vacation every year together for 1 week. So 1 year they would go to Mexico, 1 year they would go to, you know, like every year they take a vacation together for 1 week, because they're so good best friends. Like they're really close to each other, and that's been their tradition. So in the book you have chapters you follow in the present, but then you get to see like how they met in college, and like their first summer vacation, their second summer vacation, their third summer vacation. So you get to experience and you get to follow along how they met and how their first vacations together went. And then you have the present. Then you have the present where they haven't spoken to each other in 2 years, and you follow Poppy as she's losing motivation for life and for her work. She has her dream job, she's really lucky to have it, but she's starting to feel like she doesn't have a lust for life anymore. She's feeling like something is missing. And when she thinks back, like, when was the last time I was happy, a memory of her and Alex comes up. So something happened 2 years ago that make them lose contact, which you do figure out why later, but you don't know as you read it. You don't know as you read the chapter like why they fell out. You get to know that later on. So Poppy decides to contact Alex again and see if he wants to go on a trip like they used to do, and he agrees to. And they're definitely like, the chemistry between them has changed. You know, they haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. They used to be best friends, so the chemistry is going to be a little bit different on the trip, you know what I mean? It's a little bit awkward like between them. It's a little bit stiff, as you can imagine. They're trying to become friends again, and you as a reader are trying to figure out like why they fell off, like what happened, what are they trying to make amends for. You follow them on this trip as they're trying to become friends again, and one thing leads to another, and they start to grow real feelings for each other more than they used to. And it's such a good romance. It has spice definitely in it. You have the fun travel element to it, not only this trip that they're doing now, but you did get a glimpse of their previous trips together. So you have so many trips with them that you get to follow along on. And then you have this thing like where you wonder like what happened to them. That's kind of makes it a page turner, makes you want to read it because you're wondering what happened between them. And it was a really good romance. I highly recommend it, and it's definitely on my top tier list of favorite romances that I've read so far. But yeah, that was it for this video. If you have read any of these romance books, please let me know. Or if you have any other recommendations for a good romance, I'm so down for it. Please leave it down below and I will add it to my TBR, because I really wanna read more romances, really good romances. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in one of my next videos. Bye.